And I was adopted and found out my biological mother was always by my side. Part A1, A Life of Whispers. Every life is a story, but mine began with a missing page. It's a strange feeling to know the plot and love the characters, yet be haunted by the preface. My childhood was a fortress of love, built brick by brick with devotion by the only parents I have ever known. There was laughter in every room, security in every embrace. I was wanted, I was chosen, and yet beneath the melody of a happy life, there was always a single, silent note, a whisper of a question I couldn't ignore. My parents, a teacher and a landscape architect, were my world. They taught me to ride a bike, find constellations, and believe in myself. Our home smelled of old books and freshly cut grass. It was a sanctuary. They never hid the truth. Adoption was a word I learned alongside Mom and Dad, presented not as a loss, but as the beautiful way our family came to be. They answered my questions with unwavering love, assuring me my story began the day they held me, not the day I was born. For so many years, that was enough. But the whispers started subtly. They were in the mirror, where I'd search for a familiar chin or the curve of a nose that wasn't there. They were in the doctor's office, in the family medical history section, filled with question marks. These weren't moments of sadness, but of profound curiosity, a phantom connection to a past I couldn't access. It was the sense of being a tree without its original roots, flourishing in a beautiful garden, but disconnected from the soil it first sprouted from. Who gave me my eyes, my laugh? These weren't an indictment of the love I had, but a fundamental need to understand my own beginning. As I moved into my 20s, the whispers grew into a persistent hum. Every milestone, graduation, my first apartment, felt complete, yet underscored by this great unknown. A part of me carried an immense guilt. How could I even think of searching when the family I had was so perfect? It felt like a betrayal, a suggestion their love wasn't enough. I wrestled with this for years, silencing the urge, pushing it down for fear of causing them pain. I was terrified that looking for my past would invalidate my present, that the search for my roots would poison the garden where I was so lovingly raised. The turning point wasn't dramatic, but a quiet evening with old photo albums. I saw my mother's smile in my grandmother, my father's hands in his own father. I saw their unbroken chain of history. In that moment, I realized this search wasn't about finding new parents. It was about finding myself. It was about claiming that first missing page. With a deep breath that carried years of unspoken questions, I made the decision. The fear was still there, but resolve was stronger. All I had were fragments, a city, a hospital, and a single unverified name. It wasn't much, but it was a thread, and I was finally ready to pull it. Part A2, The Ghost in the Archives. The initial surge of hope, a vibrant, almost naive optimism, propelled her forward. Armed with those sparse, whispered fragments, a name, a distant city, a single, faded date, she dove headfirst into the labyrinth of official records. Libraries, government agencies, adoption registries, each new lead felt like a potential breakthrough, a thread in the tapestry of her past waiting to be unraveled. Yet the doors that seemed open often slammed shut with the cold finality of bureaucratic jargon and privacy laws. Every form filled, every phone call made, every email sent, chipped away at that initial zeal, replacing it with a growing sense of frustration as her precious fragments proved too vague, too common, too lost in the vast impersonal machinery of the state. Years blurred into a relentless cycle of anticipation and disappointment. The search became a second job, a silent, consuming obsession that shadowed her daily life. She learned the specific nuances of archival requests, the polite but firm rejections, the infuriating circular logic of departments passing responsibility. Each no record found or information sealed felt like a personal affront, a confirmation that her origins were not just unknown, but actively guarded. The paper trails led to dead ends, the databases yielded no matches, and the hope she clung to began to fray, worn thin by the constant friction of unanswered questions and unfulfilled promises. It was as if she was chasing a ghost, a whisper of a life that existed only in her imagination, forever just beyond her grasp. The emotional toll was immense. There were moments, after yet another fruitless inquiry, when the weight of it all threatened to crush her spirit. False leads, tantalizingly close, proved to be cruel mirages. A name matching, only to reveal a different birth date. A location, only to find the records had been destroyed in a fire decades ago. Each such revelation was a miniature heartbreak, a reminder of the immense chasm between her present and her elusive past. She wrestled with feelings of profound isolation, questioning if she was truly meant to find these answers, if the universe was actively conspiring to keep her in the dark. The energy required to simply believe in the existence of her birth family, despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, was exhausting. There were days she came perilously close to giving up, to accepting the narrative that some stories simply remain untold. One particularly bleak afternoon, slumped in a coffee shop after a particularly demoralizing visit to the county archives, tears silently tracing paths down her cheeks, a hand gently touched her shoulder. It was Mrs. Elena, the kindly silver-haired woman who often sat at the corner table, always with a book and a warm smile. Mrs. Elena simply offered her a tissue and a knowing, empathetic look, murmuring, "Some battles are fought with quiet strength, dear. Don't forget that. No questions, no prying, just a simple, profound act of human connection that in that moment felt like a lifeline." That small, unexpected gesture from a woman who knew nothing of her quest somehow rekindled a flickering ember of resolve. The path was arduous, undeniably soul-draining, but the core of her quest remained undimmed. A fundamental human need to understand her roots, to connect the missing pieces of her own story. She might be chasing a ghost, but it was her ghost, and she was determined to follow its trail, no matter how faint or how long the journey. The archives might hold secrets, but she was learning that persistence, even in the face of overwhelming odds, was a powerful key. Part 3. The unraveling thread. The years of endless searching, the bureaucratic walls, the cold silence of archived records, they all dissolved in an instant, replaced by a seismic jolt of hope. It arrived not as a faded document, but as an email from an online DNA registry. A match, not a distant cousin, but a close relative, with a name that resonated with subtle familiarity. My heart hammered against my ribs, a drumbeat of disbelief and burgeoning possibility. After so long, after so many dead ends, a thin, real thread had finally emerged. The screen glowed, illuminating a path I had long believed obscured. It was a moment of profound silence, yet within it, the universe seemed to roar to life, promising answers I had yearned for. This wasn't just a lead, it felt like destiny, a whispered invitation to a truth I was finally ready to hear. I wasted no time. With trembling fingers, I reached out to the contact, whose profile offered a tantalizing glimpse into a life I felt connected to. The initial exchange was cautious, but soon a floodgate opened. She shared stories, anecdotes, fragments of a family history entirely new to me. Then, the first shiver of unease, a coincidence too significant to ignore. She mentioned a small artisanal bakery in a quaint town, a place my birth mother had supposedly worked. The same bakery, I realized with a sudden chill, where my kind, supportive friend, a constant in my life, often bought her specialty bread. A fleeting thought, easily dismissed, yet it lodged itself in the back of my mind, a tiny, insistent whisper. As more details unfolded, that whisper grew into a chorus. My new contact spoke of a shared passion for an obscure classical music genre, a passion my birth mother harbored, the very same music my supportive friend often played. Then the mention of a rare inherited birthmark described in my adoption file, a small star-shaped mark on the left wrist. My heart stopped. I knew someone else with that exact mark. If you've ever felt a connection to a story like this, or experienced a moment where seemingly random events clicked into place, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories truly inspire us. These weren't coincidences. They were threads in a meticulously woven tapestry, each leading back to an unbelievable source. My friend's comforting presence now mingled with a profound, unsettling apprehension. The pieces were fitting together with alarming precision. I found myself subtly observing my friend, searching her eyes for clues, listening to her stories with a new, scrutinizing ear. Every casual remark, every shared memory, suddenly held a double meaning. She had always known so much about me, my childhood quirks, even before I shared them. Little things, like my inexplicable fear of thunder, or my preference for a specific tea, details I'd attributed to her keen observation. Now, they felt like echoes of a deeper, more intimate knowledge. The unthinkable thought began to solidify. Could this woman, this steadfast, loving presence, actually be her? The question hung heavy, weighted with terror and desperate hope. The realization wasn't a sudden flash, but a slow, agonizing dawn. It was in her unwavering presence during my darkest hours, her comfort always perfectly tailored. It was in the faded photograph on her mantelpiece, a younger woman strikingly similar to my birth mother's vague description, a picture I'd admired countless times without truly seeing. Then the ultimate confirmation arrived, not from my DNA match, but from a forgotten box of my adoptive mother's old keepsakes, a yellowed newspaper clipping. In a blurry background photo stood two women, my adoptive mother, and beside her unmistakably my supportive friend. The date, just weeks before my adoption. The unraveling thread had led me not to a stranger, but to the woman who had always been there, a silent guardian, my birth mother. Parte 4. The truth in her eyes. The walk to her house felt like the final steps of a lifelong pilgrimage. I held the last piece of evidence, a photo bridging the gap between her past and my present. When she answered, her familiar smile couldn't hide the flicker of recognition, a brief crack in a maintained facade. I didn't raise my voice. I simply laid out the facts, the string of impossible coincidences forming an undeniable chain leading to her. My own voice was a fragile whisper, heavy not with accusation, but with desperate hope. The question that finally broke the silence was simple, encompassing decades. It was you, wasn't it, all along? For a long moment, the only sound was a clock ticking, marking time that had stood still. The persona she had worn for years, that of the kind neighbor, finally dissolved. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, a river of unspoken truth. She didn't deny it. The strength for deception was gone, replaced by a wave of relief so overwhelming it seemed to unburden her. Her trembling hand reached out, not for the evidence, but to bridge the chasm between us. Then came the words, fractured and raw. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes meeting mine without a shield. "It was always me. I am your mother." Her story was not one of abandonment, but of an impossible, selfless choice. She spoke of a time when she was a girl herself, terrified and alone, with no way to provide a stable life. To keep me would have meant a future of poverty and struggle. She explained, her voice thick with remembered pain, that placing me for adoption was the single greatest act of love she was capable of. It was a sacrifice, born from a desperate hope that another family could give me the safety and opportunity she could only dream of. Her decision was a silent vow to endure lifelong grief so I could have a lifetime of chances. But her sacrifice didn't mean she disappeared. It was the start of a secret, lifelong vigil. She meticulously engineered her existence to orbit mine from a safe distance. Moving to this town was a deliberate choice. Taking the job at the library, where she could watch me grow, was part of her plan. The anonymous donations, the chance encounters, the gentle words of encouragement. It was all a quiet, invisible scaffolding built around my life. She chose to be a guardian angel in disguise, believing it was the only way to love me without disrupting the life she fought so hard to give me. She was a constant loving presence, disguised as happy accidents. As the truth settled, the anger and confusion I carried for years simply vanished. My life story, once defined by a question mark, was suddenly rewritten. It wasn't about what was missing, but about a love that was always present, hidden in plain sight. I looked at this woman, her face etched with a lifetime of secret devotion, and I no longer saw a stranger. I saw the architect of my safety, the silent protector of my childhood. The search was over. My past was no longer a mystery to be solved, but a foundation to be understood. And for the first time, our future felt like a new story we could finally begin together. Party 5. A new definition of family. The confession hung in the air, a truth so immense it seemed to suck the oxygen from the room. There was no immediate embrace, no cinematic tears of joy. Instead, a profound silence filled with the ghosts of 30 years of unspoken words. How do you reconcile the woman who guided your career, who held your hand through heartbreak, with the mother who placed you in another's arms? Every shared laugh, every piece of advice was now cast in a new, bewildering light. It was a collision of two realities, and in that moment, the path forward was invisible, shrouded in a fog of shock, betrayal, and a deep love that defied logic. The hardest conversation was yet to come. Telling the parents who raised me, the only mother and father I had known, felt like a potential betrayal. Their reaction wasn't anger, but a quiet, heartbreaking fear. A fear of being replaced, of their love being relegated to a secondary role. But through their tears, they showed the same unconditional love that had defined my life. They opened their hearts not to a rival, but to the woman who gave them their greatest gift. Their grace in navigating this impossible territory was the first step in weaving our separate stories into a single shared tapestry. Building our new relationship was a delicate, unscripted dance. We started with small things, sharing childhood photos and stories from the years we'd lived in parallel, so close yet so far apart. It was a process of relearning each other. I had to learn the mother behind the mentor, and she had to learn the daughter she had only watched from a distance. There were moments of awkwardness, of not knowing what to call each other, of navigating a bond that was both new and 30 years old. It wasn't about replacement, but about adding a foundational layer to my identity, built on a shared history finally coming into the light. Forgiveness was not a single event, but a slow, dawning realization. It was understanding her choice wasn't abandonment, but an act of desperate, selfless love. She had engineered a way to watch me grow and protect me from the shadows of her past, even if it meant sacrificing her right to be called mother. I had to forgive the years of secrecy to see the lifetime of devotion hidden within. In that forgiveness, I found profound acceptance. My life wasn't a lie. It was a story of two kinds of a mother's love, one that nurtured me daily and one that watched from afar, both powerful and both true. Our family portrait no longer fit a conventional frame. It became a sprawling, beautiful mosaic of biological ties, chosen bonds, and profound sacrifice. It was a family with two mothers, one father, and a daughter whose heart had grown large enough to hold them all. This journey taught me that love doesn't follow rules, and family isn't defined by a single story, but by the courage to embrace a more complex, honest truth. Our own stories are rarely as simple as they seem. If you believe in the power of human connection, make sure you subscribe, because our next investigation into a lost letter from World War II uncovers a secret that will change another family forever.